All right, it's a little bit after 1, and I want us to go ahead and get started, if that's okay, Ms. Isala. All right. Well, this afternoon we have 2 more Q&A sessions. Our next presenters are Mr. Fidencio Mercado and Dr. Eleuterio Blanco from the School of Rehabilitation Services and Counseling. And they'll be talking to us today about their 2 undergraduate programs, the Bachelor of Sciences in Rehabilitation Services and the Bachelor of Science in Addiction Studies. So I want to welcome Mr. Mercado and Dr. Blanco to our session. We've got Mr. Mercado as a co-host. I don't know if you have a short PowerPoint or if you're going to talk your way through it.
Well, I can share the PowerPoint that I recorded initially.
You can do that and cover some of the highlights, and then we can open it up for Q&As.
Okay, and then I'd be more than happy to discuss and talk about the graduate programs as well. I don't believe
Excellent.
Our graduate coordinators were able to attend today, but I can provide that information. So, Dr. Blanco, do you want to talk about the BS in Addiction Studies?
Sure, I can discuss that first, or I can do it after you're done, either way.
Let me go ahead and share my screen here with everyone. Thank you again and good afternoon. Unfortunately, I don't have the capabilities with my camera here at home to do a nice Zoom background, so I just put something behind me just to try to cover as much of my dining room as possible. But thank you for being here, listening in this afternoon, a little bit about what we have to share with you in regards to the school rehab services. Do you see the PowerPoint? JR?
Yes, just fine. You can go ahead and maximize it or full screen.
Okay. I think I need a swap presentation. So, nope, let me swap back. So here's our just overview of key faculty and staff within our school. Dr. Bruce Reed is our school director. So because we are a school of rehabilitation services and counseling, we function very much like a department. Just titles are a little different. So again, Dr. Reed is our director, which he serves very much like a department chair would serve. He is our leader. I assist Dr. Reed as both the undergraduate coordinator and the associate director, kind of like an assistant chair. Dr. Fisher is currently our PhD program coordinator. However, he will be stepping down from being the PhD coordinator at the end of this summer. And then Dr. Sandra Hansman will take over that role beginning fall 2020. So she's going to be the incoming PhD program coordinator. Dr. Elizabeth Chavez Palacios is our graduate coordinator in our master's in clinical rehab sciences, clinical rehab counseling. Dr. Blanco, who is here with us as the addiction studies coordinator. And then one of our key key staff members is Ms. Teresa Guerra, who is an admin too, but is really essential in the department in keeping a lot of things in order for us. And also she is the one that responds to our general rehab email. She's the one that kind of oversees that email and then will filter through information as it needs to go through. So here are just some highlights of our undergraduate program. We have on average about 250 degrees awarded. This is inclusive as with the addiction studies, and I'll let Dr. Blanco share a little more about that program and how it's launched. And we're about 1.5 years, 2 years in, and the growth that we're seeing in that program. We do offer courses on both campuses. In our undergraduate program, we have courses on both the primary campuses, Edinburgh and Brownsville. However, right now in our graduate programs, both master's and PhD programs, those courses right now are typically housed in Edinburgh. We have offered graduate practicum courses in Harlingen in the past, and that's something that we hope to expand in the future. But right now we primarily have all of our graduate courses in Edinburgh. And then of course we use ITV, so interactive television, something that's been exciting at UTRGV and our opportunity to be able to reach students on multiple campuses, not just here, but I know with like social work, for example, they have students that log in and are connected in Laredo at the same time that they're teaching here. So Dr. Blanco and I have both taught using ITV, that format. Physically, we are in the Edinburgh campus, but students are connected in live on the Brownsville campus. And then what we've done is we alternate. So 1 week Edinburgh, 1 week Brownsville, and then we just kind of rotate that way. But it's a good way to have that physical kind of face-to-face presence on both campuses and be able to teach the course to students on both campuses simultaneously. So we're excited about the inclusion of ITV and of course, both traditional face-to-face and online courses that we have as well. This is just an example or a photo of students graduating. Unfortunately, we missed the commencement this past spring because of COVID, but we are always excited. One of the things that faculty really love and take pride in is to see our students succeed, go through successfully completing our program, and then seeing them walk across the stage is a very rewarding part of our career and our job, being faculty members. So this is just something I wanted to put there for you. Here's an overview of the school itself. So the School of Rehab Services is committed to providing quality comprehensive education to UTRGV students and the community on a variety of topics related to people with disabilities. So our focus is working with individuals with disabilities. Many times when people think of rehabilitation services, sometimes you think OT, PT, or even substance abuse. Now, the substance abuse is correct with our addiction studies program, but we are not OT, we're not PT. However, in the undergraduate program, we can be a stepping stone towards those types of graduate programs like OT, occupational therapy, or physical therapy. But primarily our focus is working with people with disabilities, being able to get them to live independent, full, healthy lives, return to work, whatever the case may be, but that is our focus in rehabilitation services. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and let Dr. Blanco kind of speak a little bit now.
Sure. And I'm not going to share slides. I submitted my presentation, and because of that, I noticed that I had gone way over the time allotted for that. So I'm going to try to make up some of that right now by kind of going briefly here. So our addiction studies degree, what's remarkable about it is that we conceptualized this several years ago to be a completely online degree. So when we created the courses, we officially launched in fall of 2018. All the courses were created to be taken online by students all over the state. And that's kind of been very convenient right now because we are the only, again, at time before the pandemic, we were the only addictions studies or addictions counseling bachelor's degree in Texas that was available online. There's another university that offers a similar degree, but it is in person only. So we were online, and our students really transitioned quite well to all the online offerings that are available now. So the addictions studies bachelor's degree was created out of what we previously had as a concentration in addiction studies or a minor. So students from other departments such as psychology, social work could take addiction studies and have that as their minor. We expanded that and created a full curriculum to create a bachelor's degree. And really the primary purpose for the addictions bachelor's degree is to become a substance abuse counselor in Texas, or addictions counselor in Texas, which is one of the few counseling licenses, the only counseling license that you can obtain with just a bachelor's degree. So if somebody's interested in becoming a counselor of some kind, usually a mental health counselor, like an LPC or above, they would need to have a master's degree, a graduate degree in some type of counseling program. But if somebody were to become an addictions counselor, a substance use counselor, you can do that, you can achieve that, and work, practice, you make a very solid wage just by having a bachelor's degree. And then they would have to go on and pass a state exam and so forth. So that's about it for our addiction studies degree, we've had one graduate so far. Our first graduate graduated back in December, right before Christmas. You know, when times were good, and we celebrated that person at the graduation. That was great. This past spring in May, we had 5 graduates, and we're going to have more. And I think by the end of fall of this year, we're going to have 12 graduating. And so our, you know, degrees kind of been expanding. People really respond to it well. People enjoy the courses. I don't think there's anything else that I need to add, but of course, if y'all have questions, y'all can ask us questions about it.
I do want to add something, Dr. Blanco. So because this program was developed to be taught fully online, we went through a very rigorous process in developing these courses. All of our courses, I think with the exception maybe of one that's still pending, have been blueprinted. So they've been quality matters certified. And I know that's sometimes a concern for students or parents sending students to school doing online programs. What that means going through that blueprinting process is that we have objectives, we have a lot of interactive videos, discussion boards, many different ways and techniques that we try to engage the student as much as possible in that online environment as we would in a face-to-face class. So that is something that we are extremely proud of in the development of the Addiction Studies program, is that we've gone through that blueprinting process in each of these courses.
That's true. True. I did 2 of those. It's very rigorous. The courses are rigorous. It's not just simply taking it online because, you know, it's going to be easy. No, not so. These are very rigorous courses because we, just to back up, I mentioned licensure at the state level. If somebody graduates with this degree, they can go on to get their license and within the state to become a substance abuse counselor. But our courses are based on a lot of that exam material that they would have to, you know, that they would have to pass at the state level. So that's really what our objective was, is to get that material that they would need to pass the exam in our courses. So if somebody graduates from with a degree in addiction studies, it's very likely that they will go on and pass the state exam and become an LCDC, which is my credential, Mr. Mercado's credential also. We're LCDC's longtime licensed chemical dependency counselors.
So, yeah, so one of the things that we take pride in, of course, is being able to have students earn a degree in something that is tangible and can lead to potential employment after graduation. So with the rehab services degree, that is something that we try to accomplish as well. Although there is not a certification right now with the rehab services degree, that is something that we are working with a national program and an accrediting body to get our program accredited at the undergraduate level, and also working towards a kind of national certification to be a rehabilitation specialist. Many of our graduates go into work in different agencies that work with people with disabilities, whether that be Tropical Texas Behavioral Health, the Valley Association for Independent Living, Goodwill Industries, to name a few. And then of course with addiction studies is another. And then within the undergrad rehab services, we have a concentration in deaf and hard of hearing studies. And some of those graduates can then pursue a career as a teacher in like an RSD campus. So I know we have RSD out of McAllen, the regional school for the deaf. And so some of our students work with I think it's Mary Buckaloo at RSD, and hopefully they can pursue that as well. In our graduate programs, the Master's in Clinical Rehab Counseling, there are 2 certifications or a certification and a license students can obtain and earn after graduation. There is a Certified Rehabilitation Counselor that is a national certification that students can earn. And then there is also the LPC track, so the Licensed Professional Counselor in the state of Texas that students earn as well. So our programs at the undergraduate level and at the graduate level are really about preparing students and providing the academic foundation necessary for them to obtain licensure or certification once they're complete, because we truly want them to both be successful in academia through their programs, but also be successful in gaining meaningful employment after graduation.
Yeah, I also just wanted to mention and clarify that for the addictions degree, students do not receive a licensure or certification when they complete the degree. They receive the degree. If they want to pursue licensure, they can. That's a separate process. That's something they'll have to go through the state, but they do not receive it at the end of graduation. Just wanted to make that clear because I get asked that a lot.
Right, and thank you for that. And it's the same at the graduate level. We prepare students to meet the academic requirements for licensure. And then, of course, our PhD program. So both our graduate master's program and PhD program are currently CACREP accredited, which is counseling. And the PhD program is geared to prepare students and individuals to pursue a career in academia as a faculty member in other institutions or universities. So we have both of those programs that we're extremely proud of. And the great thing about our program and our school, more than anything, having all of the programs across both undergraduate and graduate, is we understand and know that our undergraduate program can become a feeder to our master's. And at the same time, our master's program sometimes becomes a feeder into our PhD program. We do have scholarships available at the graduate level. At the undergraduate level, there's a lot of financial aid. And then there's also sometimes we have foundation, some grant money that we're able to provide some scholarships to students, primarily like in the addiction studies program. But we have an RSA scholarship at the graduate level where students can get a $700, $800 monthly stipend, as well as tuition and fees paid for if they are an RSA scholar. But there is a payback option, whereas that they have to be employed in a vocational rehab setting after graduation for at least 2 years. And there's more restrictions, and I know Dr. Elizabeth Chavez Palacios, who's a graduate coordinator, is familiar with RSA and responding to a lot of those questions, but we have scholarships available. And then at the PhD level, there are also assistantships. And those assistantships are generally about $36,000 a year. And that is a competitive assistantship. Right now, we've got about 7 students or 8 students on assistantship in our PhD program, but they have to be enrolled full-time. Ideally, we want them enrolled full-time going through the PhD program so that they can earn that assistantship. So I think we are open to questions and answers at this time.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I didn't even know about this program until last year when we did pass for the first time. So I thought it was really cool and interesting. Right off the bat, I can really think of one particular student who I think would be a great fit, but you know, she just graduated this past May. So my question is, what would you recommend to our students to sort of kind of see if they really are interested in this particular portion of healthcare? Because really, rehabilitation can be a, you know, touchy topic. And so not everyone might have the knack for it. So what would you recommend for students to do to realize that this may be a passion for them?
I think that's a great question. And so we have found over the years, I've been with the department now about 10 years, that many times it's students that want to pursue some kind of helping profession or a health related, like health professions area. Many times that's nursing or again, OT, PT, but they take our foundation course, our kind of our primary first one is a intro to rehabilitation. So REHS 2301. And in intro to rehab, this is where we find that students really find a knack or expand their interest in helping people with disabilities. And that can be in many different ways, from case management to advocacy, understanding disability rights and laws and so forth. So many times we have also found that sometimes students will then open up about, oh, I have a family member with a disability and this is why I did this. So they have a sibling maybe with ADHD or autism, and they wanted to learn more about that to help their own family members or themselves. So they find our program through kind of by chance. But you're right, many people don't know about rehab services. What I would recommend, and if you would just encourage your students at the high school and middle school levels, is just if they have an interest in helping individuals, if they have an interest in a health profession, a health related career, to take the intro to rehab services and just learn more about our program. Both of our programs, both of our undergraduate programs, both the rehab services and addiction studies are minors. So somebody could come into UTRGV maybe as an interdisciplinary major or a different major, and pursue rehab as a minor, pursue the 18 hours. And then what we have found is, in that sense, they are taking courses that are earning them the minor degree. And then if for some reason their first choice of major doesn't work out for them, or they just decide maybe a year into college that they want to transition, it's a fairly easy transition into our undergraduate programs, because neither of our programs have an admissions process. We have an open admission, which is great. There's no application required. There's no really admission or interview. All a student needs to do is simply just declare rehab or declare addiction studies as their major. But they can be pursuing it as a minor until they're able to really find if this is the right program for them. I saw that there's a question in the chat on certifications for ASL. So within our deaf and rehab, deaf and hard of hearing concentration, there is a lot of American Sign Language proficiency that is built into that program, but there is not a certification for that. STC has an interpreter certification program. I know within the communication disorders program in our College of Health Professions, we now have a minor in interpreting. We also have a minor in ASL, but our concentration is really fusing both the rehab services, understanding disability, understanding the culture, especially with deaf culture, and infusing that with the language proficiency. So we teach a lot about ASL. We don't necessarily provide an opportunity for them to be certified. But thank you, Mr. Cantu, for that question. It was a great question. I hope I answered that question. I don't know.
Yeah, that was good. I guess a follow-up would be, I don't know, maybe Dr. Letterham can chime in on this, but that intro course that you mentioned, are students allowed to take that course, sort of like as an elective, to kind of explore a little bit, and maybe not just, intro to rehab, but other intro courses?
I think Dr. Letterham mentioned he had to step away for a while. But I know in the College of Health Professions, and I'll have to let Dr. Letterham speak about this, but we were in the process of forming what we called a meta major. And I'm not sure you all have heard anything about the meta major through this academy. The meta major was a way to try to be a catch-all for those students that are really unsure. They know they want to do something in the area of health professions, but they're not quite sure where, right? It could be rehab services, it could be communication disorders, it could be biomedical sciences, one of those. So I think within the meta major, we incorporated a lot of these intro courses, so the students would earn credit towards a degree or earn credit towards something. One of the things that we don't want to see is students with a lot of credit hours that are not applied really to anything. So our focus is always just making sure students are taking courses that they need towards their major or a minor, but that they're earning credit towards something. Are there other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mercado. Yes, they had mentioned about the meta major and that it was a possibility that it was going to happen or start in the fall. Is it already in place? Has it been approved?
Again, I need to check with Dr. Letterham. Maybe we can ask him when he comes back into the meeting. But I know a lot of program changes that were going to be effective fall of 2020. We have a meeting later this week with the registrar's department to go through that and kind of assess what has been implemented and what still needs to be worked out.
Thank you. Yes, that's a great opportunity. So if you have any other questions in regards to their program, again, you can chat them. And if we don't get to your question, then we can definitely get back to you. So at this time, any other questions?
I forgot to mention one thing. I just want to add one more thing about our addiction studies degree. So all of, I mean, it's a small set of faculty members that teach courses in addiction studies, but I want to emphasize, and I haven't done this enough, that all of us who teach the addiction courses have either state licensure, some other kind of credential, a lot of experience in actually counseling and being addiction counselors. So if somebody wants to, it's much more, it's not just education, it's a lot of mentoring also that we provide. So we're all substance abuse counselors.
Right, and so, and I think that's an advantage with faculty across the school. We are a large department or a large school in that sense. We have about 27 full-time faculty members that are both tenure track and non-tenure track that teach undergraduate and graduate courses at the same time. But there's a lot of experience. There's a lot of clinical experience that is brought into the classroom. So there's a lot of application to the theory that we teach. We have, of course, there's been so many restrictions over the last few months with you know, working from home and working remotely. But our focus has always been on community engagement through the classroom and through teaching. So we have some courses that are designated as service learning courses. That is where the students are going to be engaged in a community project along with the teaching that's taking place in the course. And then again, at the end of our program, both of our undergraduate programs and the graduate programs, there are practicums and internships. So there's opportunity for students to get hands-on clinical experience prior to graduation. You know, unfortunately, that's not the case in a lot of other disciplines like liberal arts types of programs. But within health professions, especially in our program, we have these practicum experiences at the end of their career or at the end of their academic term, where they're able to get that hands-on experience. And this what leads to potential jobs for our students and job opportunities. Will a meta major be able to later work on a master's degree? Again, I think that's a great question. And these are some of the things that I think Dr. Littingham maybe could address. The one thing to keep in mind, and so when we do academic advisement with students, is to let them know that depending on what they want to pursue down the road, if they do want to pursue a career in nursing or occupational therapy or physical therapy, other types of graduate programs, that they choose a major that is going to give them that foundation, but also somewhere where they can incorporate prerequisites. So for example, in our undergrad rehab degree, although we don't necessarily market ourselves as a pre-OT discipline, we have flexibility within our program. We have flexibility within those 60 hours that students can take OT prereqs within our program, within the major. So when they talk about electives, like Mr. Cantu asked about elective courses, you can use some of those OT prereqs within the major as upper level division elective courses. So, but as far as the meta major, I really don't know. There is not a combination, this is to Ms. Lozano, there is not a combination degree right now with social work and rehab. Something that I do want to mention, it just prompted me to think about this. We have the minor in rehab services. We have the minor in addiction studies. We are also partnered with the School of Arts, and we've incorporated and we started a minor in expressive arts. Initially, we wanted to do a bachelor's degree, and we just found that there's just not enough there wasn't enough interest. There's interest, but there's no like certification or things students can pursue afterwards. But we have a minor in expressive arts. So a student can be a rehab major or any other major for that matter, even a major in arts. And they pursue a career in a minor in expressive arts. So the minor in expressive arts is a combination and a collaboration between us, social work, and the School of Art. And that is something where students can learn how to infuse the arts, whether it's, art, music, poetry, photography, anything, into a counseling practice, which is exciting. Those courses, I think, are about a year or two in. We are working on becoming the lead program in that minor, so that's just something else that students will have another option to pursue. They can be a rehab major and be designated as having that minor in expressive arts. So a student can have a major in rehab services with a concentration in deaf, hard of hearing, and a minor in expressive arts, and really graduate with a wealth and depth of knowledge in many different disciplines across the board to give them that. The minor in expressive arts also works in addiction studies. Addiction studies, we are preparing students to hopefully become counselors, and how you can infuse counseling with expressive arts is something that's really great, and that's being taught within that minor. So where can students, what are some places students work at? Again, tropical, at the undergraduate level, it's Tropical Texas Behavioral Health, the Valley Association for Independent Living, Goodwill Industries. Some of our students go on to do the alternative certification for teaching. So they go and work in public schools through special education programs. We have a lot of our students that have gone into public school settings, both elementary, middle school, and high school level. They become special ed teachers. Many times their practicum experience is in a special education classroom. And then what they do is if I find someone that is really interested in that, then most of the times what I encourage them to do is pursue a career in licensed specialist in school psychology, an LSSP or the LPC, right? That way they can stay within the school setting. Most of these jobs start an average of about $32,000 to $35,000 a year. And I think that's about the same, Dr. Blanco, is that the same for addiction studies?
Yeah, that's typical. Starting at least 30, 32 or so. And as they get licensed, their salary will increase.
I have a question. Hello, Dr. Blanco.
Hello.
My question
ask it to Mercado. Mercado might be able to answer.
Okay, Mr. Mercado. Are you there, Mr. Mercado? I'm really, okay. Hi, how are you, Fito? I'm really interested in that. The minor in expressive arts, being that it's hard to get or to have an art therapist around the area. So I'm just wondering if what you have in the minor, the concentration of the minor, being part of the arts, becoming an art therapist. Like, do you know if some of your courses will be able to be applied to the arts to become a therapist?
So it's a great question. And again, it's a tough one because at the undergraduate level, for the most part, they're not going to graduate to become a therapist. That is something that we see more at the graduate level, LPC, so through our clinical rehab counseling program. But the minor, what we are doing with the minors, we're providing just alternatives also for students that are in the arts, for them to have a tangible rehab background with the potential for employment when they graduate. So students that have a degree in art or a major in art or fine arts to also explore the expressive arts, because there is some infusion of some counseling or helping therapies and techniques at that level, but it's not necessarily working towards certification. With the minor, we are working as a school, we are working and looking at proposing a certification at the graduate level in expressive arts counseling or expressive arts therapies. And that is something that's still being developed. It's something that's in the process, but we're working on that. So from the minor, hopefully we can grow into that graduate program to be able to provide that certification. So thank you, Matilde, for that question.
Thank you.
And which brings me to our other graduate program, another graduate program that we are just launching in the fall. So our department has been working hard. We've been working for the last 2-3 years on a lot of different initiatives with the addiction studies program going from an elective class, over 20 years ago to now being a full degree on its own. This is how we try to work programs and grow and expand programs on campus. We are just officially launching a bilingual counseling certificate at the graduate level as well. So anybody that is a current master's student is going to be encouraged and invited to explore this certificate. Anyone that is already graduated and has a master's degree, this is something to consider and explore as well. So maybe for some of you, this is something that could be exciting for you, as we are going to launch this bilingual certificate program. It is a 15-hour certificate that will be fully online. And again, this is all pre-COVID things. We just knew that online was a good market for us to expand our program and our services. So we have the first 2 courses that are going to be offered this fall. And that is an intro to bilingual counseling and another course in cultural aspects. So it is bilingual, it is English and Spanish, that is our focus. And the courses will be taught bilingually. So they're not going to be taught fully English or fully Spanish, it'll be a combination of both. But the courses are really to help anyone that is interested in earning the certificate in bilingual certification or bilingual counseling certification at the end of this. So it's a 15-hour program. So it's 5 classes. So 5 classes that will be offered completely online. And we're starting with 2 of those courses in the fall semester. So going back to our undergraduate program, courses that students can take while in high school to help them determine if this is a good career choice. I think any health-related profession course, we really don't have anything I believe at the high school level specific to rehab, but if you do, you can correct me. Please correct me if I am wrong, because I don't really know much of what is offered at the high schools. But if there's a course that focuses on people with disabilities or a health-related profession, or even something specific like to addictions counseling or deaf and hard of hearing, then yes, encourage your students to take those courses at the high school, during their high school career and during their high school years. So that way they can generate interest into our programs after graduation. And again, the great thing about both Dr. Blanco's addiction studies program and our general rehab program is that there is not an admissions process. There's really not an application process. Once a student gets accepted to UTRGV, then they simply declare rehab services with a concentration of their choosing, or they declare addiction studies as their major, and then they just move from there. We also understand that many high school graduates and high school students graduate with associate's degrees through dual enrollment or through AP exams, and that's great. That's extremely beneficial to students. I know financially that's great for parents as well, cost effectiveness, but students can come into UTRGV as a junior and they could jump right into one of our programs. If they are core complete, they can jump right into one of our programs. We don't have a lot of prerequisites within the core other than maybe like general psychology. So if they can take a general psychology course through AP exam or through some type of dual enrollment, that is ideal, because that would be something that would prepare them and get them ready for both the rehab services and the addiction studies program.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, in addition to something like psychology, maybe criminal justice, if they take criminal justice at the high school level, we have a lot of students who are criminal justice, or maybe they earn their associates in criminal justice, who are interested in addiction studies. Maybe they want to pursue some kind of career like in probation, or to be, an addiction counselor. They can do that as well.
So a question in the chat from Ms. Alvarez. Unfortunately, no, we don't have any current internships for students, high school students like at Tropical Texas Behavioral Health or other agencies. I know last summer, this summer was different, but last summer we partnered and worked with Gear Up, and we helped mentor 2 students. One of them, once we mentored them and
Something's happening to your mic, Mr. Mercado. We lost you.
okay, can you hear me?
There you go. Yes, you're good.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
sorry.
better.
So we had, it was Gear Up. It was Gear Up and the opportunity to mentor and work with students. And one of those students that we worked with last summer has already reached out and said that he'll be starting in the fall semester and looks forward to, to being in our program. But unfortunately, we don't have anything with high school students and internships at this time. But maybe that's something that we need to explore.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
For the panel. This is a little bit different, but sort of related to the question that you just answered. If a group of students at a high school were interested in forming an interest group, say on a support group for students who maybe have family members who are addicts or who are just newly sober, what would be some of the parameters you think would be important to keep in mind for a sponsor, say like a teacher or a coach or somebody who's going to be the sponsor for that group? Do you have any thoughts or ideas? And would this count, for instance, as leadership for future applications to your program? Did that make sense?
Yeah, Mercado, well, the only thing I can think of, I mean, as far as official resources, I mean, the university has a recovery, collegiate recovery program. If they want to be involved in that, they can. A lot of students volunteer and are involved with the collegiate recovery program on campus because they're interested in the subject, and there are also our students as well. We have a couple, not a couple, we have many student organizations, but specifically to substance use. So I'm the advisor, one of the co-advisors of the Aspiring Substance Abuse Professionals. It's a student organization on our campus, comprised of students from different majors who are interested in this as a career. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add, Mercado, to that.
I'm so sorry. I meant for high school students, if they wanted to start a support group on the high school campus. If you have some thoughts on what some of the, I guess, parameters should be. I know this is different, but I think sometimes kids
sounds like
that at the campus.
Sounds like, well, maybe Mr. Mercado can answer this because we're really involved with the Palmer Drug Abuse Program in McAllen. So that might be a resource that they could seek out.
Right, and that was going to be my response is to really partner with us, and so that we can partner with and help maybe be a liaison to different community agencies and partners. When I worked in the community, I worked and had experiences at Sheridan High School with a SAD program, the Students Against Destructive Decisions. And I thought that was a really great program. I think their advisor, their faculty or teacher advisor at the time reached out to the community agency that I worked for, and we worked with them. We offered, trainings and services, but I think ultimately it's a great idea. It's a good way to get students at the high school level to start speaking about difficult issues and difficult topics, such as substance abuse and recovery. And but with proper communication and networking through the university with Dr. Blanco or I, and then our community agencies that we partner with, I think that's something that can be done. That was a great question. Thank you, Ms. Lozano. There's a question privately in the chat, but I think the question is, can someone that has a degree become a counselor, a different type of degree? So Yes, I know Dr. Blanco can speak to LCDC, but as far as LPC or let's say you have a degree in criminal justice or a degree in psychology, for example, and want to pursue our graduate program in clinical rehab counseling, that is possible. Or if you wanted to pursue the degree in the PhD in rehab counseling, but your background is something different, we do have both of those programs, those graduate programs where you can take what we call like a leveling course to get you kind of up to speed, but you do not have to have a degree in rehab, undergraduate degree in rehab to pursue a counseling profession or a counseling degree in rehab later. We have quite a few students actually apply to our graduate programs that are outside of our discipline, which is great, and that's what we want. But for LCDC, for a licensed chemical dependency counselor, what Dr. Blanco and I have done is we've worked with individuals in the past where we can do like a transcript review and look at what your transcript, what you have there and make some recommendations. But ultimately it's up to the state of Texas to determine if you've met the educational requirements. And then they will let you know what needs to be done to then move forward, right, Dr. Blanco?
Yeah, I just wanted that. So if they want to get their license in counseling and addiction counseling, the closer their degree, their academic record is towards something like social behavioral sciences, rehab services, health human services, the better. If it's something that's further away, something like, English, history, education, even, the state views that as something that's not compatible with addiction counseling. They will have to take, additional addiction counseling courses, things like that. But the closer they are to something that's human services, social behavioral, the better.
This is Dr. Alvarado, and I think there's some questions on the chat that may have already been answered or may not have, but I'm going to go ahead and ask some of the ones that came in just recently about starting salaries and the courses that students can take in high school that will help them determine a good career choice. Also kind of attached to that one is a question about internships for students in high school. And if you know any contacts or if you recommend any internships while they're in high school.
Yes, again, so as far as the internships, we do not have anything in place right now where students can be taking internship while in high school, but that is something that we could explore. And I think it's a great question, an opportunity for us to explore that. As far as the salaries, we had discussed that generally, both in the addiction studies and general rehab services, students can earn about $32,000 to $35,000 a year. Depends on the agency they work for. Of course, if somebody pursues and goes into education, that's a little bit different. And I think that's a little higher. If someone goes into like a special education classroom through the ACP programs, so doing the alternative certification for teaching. And I'm sorry, Dr. Alvarado, what was the other question? Oh, classes to take in high school is for career choice. Any health-related profession class, criminal justice class, a general psychology course, because general psychology is a prerequisite for the major. But those are great courses to take while in high school if they're offered the opportunity to take those courses. Dr. Lettingham, I see you're back. So we have some questions regarding the meta major and where the meta major is.
Okay, well, the meta major in concept is built into all of our degree programs now. And really what it is encompassing is when we look at all of the programs of study in the College of Health Professions, School of Nursing, School of Social Work at the undergraduate level, we are having a common gen ed core requirement across the board. So if someone starts out pre-nursing, and for whatever reason they don't get into nursing and then they want to switch into rehabilitation services, they can easily do a change of major and get into that program, and they haven't lost very many hours, if any at all. So that's going to really benefit them in that process. That's our idea of a meta major. Other universities use meta major as kind of, okay, this is, you're in health professions, you take these courses and then you divide up as you get into your junior and senior year. We're kind of using the same concept, but it's just a matter of where we're at. We are also in the process of developing a new degree plan, which is not gone live yet, so I can't say too much about it. It's our Bachelor of Science in Integrated Health Sciences, which will serve as the entry major for all of our programs that have an admissions process. But it hasn't been approved by our system yet, so I can't give you too many details. But it's a program of study that's really going to benefit our students in a lot of different ways. They can either earn their bachelor's in integrated health science, or that's going to be their starting point for nursing, CLS, social work, all of the pre-admission fields. They'll start out as a BS in integrated health science major and then transition to nursing or CLS or ComD after they apply and get accepted.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up, yes, students will not graduate with a meta major. It really is only a stepping stone to their final major that they'll earn their degree in. Now, our BS in Integrated Health Science, if for some reason, that student discovers, you know what, I want to go into something other than nursing and they want to stick with health science, they can do that. They'll be attracted to finish in that degree. But a lot of students will use that as a stepping stone, just like a meta major, to get to where they finally want to go. We'll be hopefully launching the Bachelor of Science in Integrated Health Science fall 2021.
These are great opportunities for students to towards, a potential major rather than taking courses and then switching majors. I think on average, some data and research shows that students will change their major how many times? 3 times, while in college. And this is a good way for them to be earning credit towards a potential major within health professions. So this is good for any student that says, I want to help people, I want to do something with health professions, but they don't know exactly what at the moment. This is a great way to get them started. And then hopefully, they take an intro to rehab class and they fall in love with rehab, or they take intro to addiction studies and they fall in love with addiction studies and they say, this is what I want to do, right?
That would be ideal, and we'll push them that way as much as we can.
Generally, students take courses with Dr. Blanco and they fall in love with Dr. Blanco and addiction studies, and then we're, they're sold on that after that. So
that works for us.
I have a quick question. Is there a certain disposition the student needs to have? I know that last year when we, or when I attended the presentation for social work, one of the first things that they said was, social work is not for everyone. And, there's definitely a very select group of students that are more successful in that field than others. And they talked about, really like emotional intelligence and the fact that, students were more connected to the people that they interacted with. Is there in that major, before they get introduced to maybe upper level courses where, they'll find out too late, is there something like an intro where they can understand what they need in order to be a good candidate emotionally for this type of degree?
I think that's a great question. So both of our intro courses, the Intro to Rehab Services and Intro to Addiction Studies, we explore that somewhat. I don't want to say that this degree can be for everyone because there is some of that as well. There is some of that, you know, when you're in any type of helping profession, it can take a toll on you, you know, personally. So we do a lot of reflection with students. There's a lot of discussion, of course, on ethics, but also on self-care. And so we incorporate that into our curriculum and in our courses. So students really understand and know what they're pursuing before they get, like you said, before they get to those upper level courses, and then it's a little too late for them to change. And you know, and I'm not gonna, not be honest here, but honestly, there's been some students that graduate from our program and then decide rehab was not necessarily what they wanted to do, but it could be a good foundation and a good stepping stone for them to pursue other interests in graduate school, you know, other graduate programs. We've had some students go into law school. And the advantage there, you know, with me is, okay, go to law school, that's great. But the advantage is, you know, ADA now, you know, disability rights, and you know how to advocate. So you could take some of these concepts and principles you learned within our field and apply it to other disciplines. So there's not quite necessarily a disposition, but there is some reflection and some things that would be asked of students to really take a look at introspectively as they continue and progress through the program. I think that's a great question, excellent question. So I do want to share, because I'm looking at the time here, but I do want to share the screen one more time. Here is our contact information. So my name, again, I'm the BS program coordinator and also the associate director for the school, but my email is here. Dr. Blanco, your email does have the 01?
Yes, it does. And I also, if you can type on there and add, we have a departmental address as well for addictions, and it's addiction studies altogether. And I'll respond to that one as well.
So the addiction studies that Dr. Blanco oversees, and then this general rehab services email, again, that's what Teresa Guerra kind of helps organize and facilitate for us. But this is our contact info for additional information and questions. If you have students or family members that want to reach out to us and ask other specific types of questions, please encourage them to do so. I've met with students, again, before working remotely, but I've met with students on campus while they're seniors in high school to kind of just discuss other things about our program, possible career choices, employment options, things like that once they graduate. Here's just a quick photo. Dr. Mark, this is what some of our students would do in an extensive class. There's a lot of reception, a lot of activities. We do have
your audio is cutting out there. Your audio is cutting out there, Fito. I think that you're trying to describe the expressive arts. Is that right?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, this one was for expressive arts with drum circles and yoga. And then again, with travel restrictions, hopefully are lifted, maybe spring or summer next year. We also have some study abroad course within our program. And it's family and disability looked at from different angles and perspectives. So this is a photo of some of our students in London 2 years ago. So just wanted to share our contact info and wanted to just share a few of those photos with you as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Fito and Dr. Blanco. That was a great presentation. I had to sneak away and I listened to most of it. I'm glad it was recorded. Now I can go back. But thank you all so much for your time. And with that contact information, of course, if you have questions, reach out to us. We will help and guide as much as we can. Our